In the spirit of Valentine's Day coming up, and of course, you can guess from my title also, Who Loves You, Baby? What did one boat say to the other boat? Are you interested in some romance? So for those of the younger generation that may not know where my title came from, back in the 70s, there was a detective show called Kojak from this Greek-American actor, Telly Savalas, and that was his thing. He actually went around and instead of smoking, which you could do back in the day, anywhere you went, instead of smoking, he had a lollipop that he would be always sucking on. And his thing was when he ended the conversation with anybody, pull out the lollipop and say, "Who loves you, baby?" and be on his way. So why am I talking about the word love today? Well, as you might guess, of course, in a few days we have, yes, Valentine's Day. So what do we know about the power of love? Well, if we follow Unity co-founders Charles Fillmore's definition and his metaphysical take on the power of love, of course, this came from what he basically made his own, that the 12 powers, we had 12 powers innate within us, and each power had a center in different parts of our body. And as you might guess, the power of love is right behind the heart. And he also associated each of the disciples of Jesus with each of the 12 powers. Once again, you might guess that this disciple for the power of love is none other than John the Beloved. So Charles Fillmore goes on to tell us that love is the ability to feel affection for, to attract oneself to harmonize, to unify. He's got a book called The Revealing Word where he gives metaphysical definitions of different words specifically from the Bible. And yes, he defines love as the pure essence of being that binds together the whole human family. He goes on to say that in divine mind, love is the power that joins and binds in divine harmony the whole universe and everything in it. And yes, you're in the universe as well. This tells me that the universe is, in fact, loving you at all times. I'd like to go back that, of course, February we're celebrating not just Valentine's Day, but a very important celebration, Black History Month. And all these that I'm going to repeat, I dare say that it is part of what love is about. Part of including those that were marginalized in previous years. And not to the extent, of course, but I have felt that too, being Hispanic and coming from Colombia, which is where I'm originally from. But even like that, it's good to know that slowly but surely, with some growing pains, this country is slowly but surely getting to that inclusivity that we should really be all about. So not only do we have the Black History Month, and of course Valentine's Day, there's also something called North American Inclusion Month. And if you don't know that one, it's about raising awareness of people with disabilities. So it's only fitting that it's in February as well. Youth Leadership Month. That's about getting young people to take leadership roles in their communities so they can be of service to the community. And an easy one, International Friendship Month. Friendship, friend, being in love, why not? And I guess you could call it a serious one, American Heart Month. And that's for those suffering from illnesses from the heart, different things that are having issues with it. So it's good to keep in mind that during the month of February, we should have Valentine's Day be kind of like something that will remind us to keep all these other celebrations, if you will, in mind and give love to those celebrations. As Gandhi once said, where there is love, there is life. I'll say it again. Where there is love, there is life. And as we know from the Bible, we read that we were created in the image and likeness of God. So if we are created in the image and likeness of God, we must be part of that image. And what do we say about love also? What do we say about God, That God is love. So if we are of God, from God, it can only mean that we are indeed love as well. We inherit that love. We have that love by design, by divine design. I like to read from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7. Very specific points about love. Love is patient. Anybody here patient? Okay. Let's try to remember that one. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. Think about that. It is not irritable. I think that goes in line with patience also. It keeps no records of wrongs. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. And to me, that truth is that we are loved, and we should live as such. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. I think all of us throughout the year always have to endure things. Let's remember to come from love in anything and everything that we have to go through, let's put it that way. And of course, love never ends. So it goes in line that if God is love, and we know that God never ends either, love is eternal, so it means that love is eternal. And if love is eternal, does that mean that we are eternal? Think about that. I mean, yes, we have this body and, we are born, we grow up, we get older, we die, or sometimes it doesn't have to be when you're older. But if you think it's hard to believe that we are eternal, let's not look at it from this physical body that we have. This is just a vehicle for God to show itself through us and to be part of this physical aspect that we're seeing. So yes, if you're having a hard time with that one, let's think of ourselves as not this body, because in truth, this is not who and what we are. What we truly are is the spirit, the soul within us. And what do we say about a soul? It is eternal. So the soul is eternal, love is eternal, we are one and the same. It goes without saying, I guess I had to say it, that we are eternal. So let's remember that. Another point I'd like to make about love is in John 4:18, and we read, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear." There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. And it actually goes also along the lines of what A Course in Miracles says. And A Course in Miracles tells us that the opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing I just lost it. I was thinking too many things at once. Let's say it again. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. To think about that opposite thing, another way we can look at it is, another thing that actually A Course in Miracles says also is, yes, the opposite of love is fear. But if we take the meaning of fear according to A Course in Miracles, fear is just lack of love. I like to take that into a more scientific term, if you want. So, in truth, there is no fear, because fear is just the absence of love. Love, in a certain way, is tangible to us if we let it be. We can see the similarity in light and darkness. The opposite of light is darkness. But is darkness really something that exists? How many of us have gone into a room, pitch black, and all we have to do is flip a switch, and the moment the light comes on, what happens? No more darkness. I have my brother-in-law who's an electronic engineer, very scientific person, very scientific mind. Actually was giving me a good idea when he said, I don't know, something came up, and he mentioned that darkness or the dark does not exist. And the reason that he knows that is because there's nothing that you can measure to prove that darkness is a certain weight, a certain density, nothing. But instead, light, you can measure it. They even have a specific name for the measurement of light, which is lumens, and it tells you how much intensity the light is. And when there is no light, it's just darkness. And darkness you cannot measure at all. So that was his take on it. So I hope that makes sense. The opposite of love is fear, but there's really no fear. It's just lack of love. This next passage tells us, and is from Corinthians 13, 1-3, tells us how very important love is. If I speak in tongues of humans and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast but do not have love, I gain nothing. In simple terms, this really is telling us that without love, we have nothing, but more importantly, we are nothing. Speaking of nothing, We read in the Bible that in the beginning there was nothing, and God said, "Let there be light." There was still nothing, but now you could see it. I got a better reaction out of that one than I thought. So what is love's significance in our lives? By now you may have gathered that love is extremely important in our lives. I mean, it is our lives, really. It is so significant that in the Greek language, I just realized I put the two Greeks together. I didn't even realize that. We have multiple names for the word love, and you may have heard a couple of these, or maybe all, depending. Eros is the word for love in Greek that relates to the erotic or passionate love. Philia is the word associated with love of friends or of equals. You, of course, know the city called Philadelphia, and that's why they call it the city of brotherly love. Although some that live there might not agree with that. Storge, the love of parents of children. So it's good to remember that when we as parents that have, let's use that word storge. And probably most of you have heard of the next one that is fairly well known in spiritual metaphysical circles, agape, which is the love of mankind or the love of mankind to God or vice versa. Not only that, but even in Spanish, we have a couple of words for love. And one is a little more deep, I'm going to call it, than the other one. In Spanish, the word querer means to love, but it's really more directly related to liking, or it's even used for wanting something. And the word amor is more true love of what we think about. But as a person of Hispanic heritage, I remember growing up, and there were very few times that I would actually use the word amor, or to say to somebody, te amo, because that was just a little too deep. So you would say te quiero, and if you wanted to make it more, that it would take more, you would say te quiero mucho. And actually, after growing up, I realized more and more, though, gratefully, people were starting to use the word amar or amor more directly with loved ones. And instead of saying te quiero mucho, te amo. And it wasn't just about, because originally te amo was thought of as just between two lovebirds, if you will. So this word of love and the act of love is so significant that Pastor Gary Chapman wrote a book that he labeled the 5 love languages. Anybody heard of that one? A few of you. I'll just go through them real quick. Words of affirmation is one of them. And this, of course, he's saying that we have different ways of showing love or receiving love or accepting love, depending on how we see the world, if you will. One is words of affirmation, which could be compliments or words of encouragement. The other one is quality time. Spending quality time through sharing, listening, or just participating in a meaningful place like this one. There's also physical touch, which could be anywhere from just a little tap on the shoulder to a warm hug. And we have acts of service, which is when somebody wants to help and do something, do things. And we are very grateful for those here that their love language is acts of service, because that's what helps keep a church like this going week to week, Sunday to Sunday. So I want to say thank you to those that have that acts of service in their DNA, I'm going to say. The last one is receiving gifts. And unless you are one of them, you might think, what do you mean, receiving gifts as being love? But it is a visual symbol of love, and many people have that. I can tell you my dad was one of them. And I can tell you that I'm not one of them. Now, I truly believe that the experience I had, as some of you may know, for about 3 years or so, going through my medical challenge, I'm going to say. I had colon cancer, and from the time I was diagnosed till the time I can say that I was healed completely, it was about 3 years or so, give or take. I'm glad to say that it's been officially over a year that I've been free and clear. And all what I'm about to say is to show that I think without love, it would have been a lot harder and maybe impossible to have gone through all this. And before I go through all that, though, I want to say that it's not just about that feeling of love and that action of love, but if you're dealing with a health challenge, I'm going to tell you, go with that triune truth that we have here in Unity, or in layman's terms, the three-legged stool. Work on your physical, work on your mental, and surprise, surprise, work on your spiritual. And if you do all those three, and I had to learn that the hard way. I really thought I was doing all three, and then I realized I was more focused on one or the other, but not all together. And when I brought all of them to an even keel, if you will, things started happening for me. And one of those was to realize the love that I was receiving throughout my challenge. And yes, all those that heard here about it, I know you guys were praying for me every single time throughout my whole ordeal. I got a lot of love from my siblings. One of them got us into a whole group chat just for the family, and every single night at 9 o'clock, we were to stop and focus on praying. And I'm going to say it wasn't just for me at the time, but for my mom. And throughout the couple of years that we were doing that, and I say we were doing it because I was doing it too, and there was a nice little affirmation, a little prayer, and then we would go into silence in our own lives, in our own houses. But it was 9 o'clock, and even people, all my relatives in Colombia were doing the same. So that really, to me, kept me going. And it was simple acts. At the time, one of my uncles was living in the northern part of Georgia. And one of the couple of times that I had a really bad episode when I was feeling like I just didn't want to do anything, and honestly, I was thinking like that might be it. He called me one day to say, I'm coming over tomorrow. Simple act, but I wasn't expecting it from him. And yes, I do know, and I did know that he loves me. But it's one of those things that you're not thinking about that at the time. And just a simple act, I want to go see you, meant the world to me. Another one, of course, again, that I should have known, but I had to experience it. If it hadn't been for my amazing wife sticking with me through thick and very thin, I'm not sure if that could have made it. And I'm going to say something that I wasn't sure I was going to share, but I mentioned that my mom was going through her issues, so we were praying for her as well. And she actually lasted quite a few years after she was diagnosed, initially with lung cancer. But thanks to one of my sisters who does holistic healing, she really helped keep her going for a while. And this past December 5th to be exact, she finally passed away. But that whole year before, she was doing great. And it was just that last week that all of a sudden she just started crashing. And I kind of thought that was it. But it reminds me, a year before that, she had an episode where I thought, okay, this might be it. And I actually asked her straight out, because we were so into, okay, what's your mindset? I asked her, is this it for you? Do you feel like this is it? And she said no. And it was amazing, because that same day, all of a sudden, it was like nothing had happened. Once she made the assertion that she was still going to be here, all of a sudden things changed for her. So, saying all that is to say that I really believe that it was an amazing act of love on her part to keep herself going till she knew I was fine. She did not pass away till she knew that I was fully healed. That's the way I see it. So along those lines, how can we bring love into our lives? Since we live in this world of opposites, ups, downs, left, right, in, out, there are many times where we're not going to feel up to speed, as it were. We may feel a little down, a little depressed, maybe a little lonely. And it is at those times that I like to say, we need to remember who loves you, baby. So to bring love into our lives, let's make a decision to just accept that love is who and what we are, where we come from. If we are on the individuation of that source of all, that universe, God, whatever you want to call it, we could never be apart from love. We could only be love. As I mentioned before, God is love, and as such, you are loved by design. And if you understand the law of circulation, to keep this love going, what is it that we say? If you want to give love, if you want to receive love, you have to give love. But guess what? I was thinking about the fact that you can only give what you have. And how do we know we have love? Because we are that divinity that is flowing in and through us. So we have that love within us already. So it should be simple for us to give love. And when we give love, what happens? It comes back to us. As Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore tells us, God is the love in everybody and in everything. I'll say it again. God is the love in everybody and in everything. So let's remember, once again, in Divine Mind, love is the power that joins and binds in divine harmony the universe and everything in it. And you are in the universe. So love, of course, can be and really is healing if we know how to accept it. And how do we bring that love? We give it so that we can receive it. And we need to be grateful for love. But better yet, we need to be love. I have one last question for you. What did one volcano say to the other volcano? I love you. Okay.